Hi, I'm Shodan. I'm a model and cosplayer. So I've been modeling for about 8 years, cosplaying for 10. I've traveled all over the country, going to different conventions. I've met a lot of people, like fellow cosplayers and a lot of fans, both on and offline. And a lot of the time I get a lot of the same kind of questions. And I figured rather than keep answering them over and over and over again forever, I'll just make one video that I can send people where they can find out everything, alright? Okay, so we'll start with cosplay questions. I get asked a lot how I started cosplaying. I've been sewing since I was 4 years old. My mom is an art quilter. She makes amazing textile art. When I was growing up, I was kind of a nerd, more my older brother, but it rubbed off on me. Not in a weird way. I was a real weirdo in high school and I liked to wear really out there outfits. And I also liked to sew a lot of my own clothes. They weren't that good, but I loved doing it. It was just kind of well, I know how to sew and I love these video games and these characters, so it was natural. Probably the most common question I get asked was what my first cosplay was and what my favorite cosplay is. And the answer for both is the same. Chell from Portal and Portal 2. It was my first cosplay when I was a teenager. I love Chell because she doesn't say anything, but she's also a badass, kind of like me. I don't talk much. It was a pretty easy cosplay to make, though my first couple versions were not great. And I didn't really know about wigs or makeup or any of that. A lot of people will ask what the hardest thing about cosplay is, or what my hardest projects have been. Honestly, the hardest part of cosplaying is wearing goddamn high heels. I hate those things. They hurt so much. You try to walk around in a convention in them and you're just can't walk, can't walk. They make your butt and your legs look great, but they're so uncomfortable. Sometimes wearing a wig for hours can be really awful too, especially if it's a big one that has to be clipped to your head. Ooh, boy, you get a headache. My hardest projects so far, I've only done one cosplay that had armor build, and that one was pretty hard. I also incorporated some L-wire and light-up effects to it. That was totally 80s Zarya from Overwatch. That one was pretty hard, but it was easier than I thought it was going to be, so that was nice. Hardest sewing project was probably Rosalina from Mario Galaxy. That dress! It looks really simple, but it's not. Because of the way it cuts off here, the pattern was a lot more complicated than I was expecting. Plus, it's just a beast to try to iron that much shiny fabric and have it look good for con. Sometimes if I tell people I'm a cosplayer, they'll say, oh, what do you cosplay? Or what animes do you cosplay from? And I just kind of stop and I think, good question. What do I cosplay from? I guess if I had a specific niche, it would definitely be cyberpunk. From cartoons to video games to I've even done a few novels from William Gibson and Neil Stephenson. I love cyberpunk. I also do an assortment of classic video game characters, especially Nintendo, just because I grew up with them, I love them. I'll get people saying, when are you going to cosplay X character? Or have you ever thought of doing X character? A lot of the time, I don't know who those characters are, and I'm not going to be likely to just go and do it. And this goes for any cosplayer. The best way to get them to do the character that you want to see is to sponsor the costume. I have, in the past, done characters that I wasn't super crazy about because I've had a fan that just really wanted to see me as that character. And honestly, I can really get into it if I know that there's someone who's going to be a big fan of it. Now for some questions about modeling. I got started in modeling pretty much as soon as I turned 18. I knew that I wanted to do nude modeling. I wanted to do fetish work. Didn't know about the crossover between that and cosplay yet. I wanted to do it ever since I was a young teenager. I grew up on the internet in the era of DeviantArt and vampire freaks and all that, and I thought all the fetish models were just the coolest people, and I couldn't wait to do that when I got older. I also grew up watching America's Next Top Model, which is a little bit shameful to admit, but it's true. The photo shoots always looked like so much fun, and I just loved the creativity of it. It's kind of a weird question to get, but I have a decent amount of people ask me what my family thinks about my modeling, which, if that's your first thought when you're looking at a picture of me naked, that's probably something weird about you rather than something weird about me. My parents were a little uncomfortable with the nude aspect at first, but they came to see how happy it made me, and that's really what counted. They're great, I love them. I'm out in every aspect of my life. My family knows that I model. My coworkers, my boss, my friends, everybody. I really am Shodan just all the time. Everybody I've dated has always thought it's mostly funny rather than anything. I mean, If your girlfriend like makes money dressing up like a cartoon horse and selling nude pictures, like, it's never been a thing that I've even considered giving up for anybody, because I knew that if they wanted to be with me, then they would understand. Fans will be really curious about what photo shoots are like. I don't really know. I produce mine myself. Like, I hire a photographer, I choose a location, I show up and I direct and get everything going. Photographers definitely have a lot to do with it too. I think the way a lot of models work is really different from that. Like, they get hired and they show up and everybody just kind of throws stuff onto them and they do it. Still a lot of work, but it's very different from what I do. My photo shoots, it's usually just me and the photographer, maybe another person to stand guard if we're shooting in public. I have done a lot of fetish modeling in the past, and I plan to do a lot more in the future. Fetish modeling, it can be things like bondage, or like foot modeling is totally a fetish thing. I also have done like a lot of splashing, which is super fun, and it can be really confusing to people who are not like really exposed to that type of thing on the regular. Kink and BDSM have been an important part of my life for a long time. I work within the San Francisco kink community at my day job at the coffee shop. More about that later. And it's just something that's like a big part of who I am, really. Although I'm not going to get into too many details. Sometimes people will ask what I like about my work and what my favorite part of a photo shoot is. Absolutely, my favorite part of the photo shoots is bringing the characters to life. I love trying to think of ways to get naked that make sense with the character. Like, would they be taking a bubble bath? Would they be like in bed? Or would they be in public? It's just such another level of creativity to cosplay that you might not get otherwise. Like, what kind of makeup would that character wear? Like, what kind of bed sheets would they have? What kind of lingerie? It's just so much fun, and it's honestly so fulfilling to the very nerdy part of my heart. Some general questions about life. Another very, very commonly asked question I get is when I'm coming to X convention or X place, or would I ever travel to X country? The best way to get your favorite cosplayers to your local conventions is to reach out to that convention and tell them to invite us as a guest. That is the absolute best thing you can do to try to get us to come to your con. I would be down for going pretty much anywhere if I was invited. There seems to be sometimes this impression that cosplayers make a ton of money or are super rich and like get to travel everywhere and they just make cosplays all the time. And maybe for some of them it's like that, but for most of us, it's not like that. I'm now making enough money through Patreon and with the cafe that my income is pretty much 50-50. And I can afford it for now and live pretty comfortably, which is great. But I do have to pay a lot in taxes, and I do live below the poverty level by quite a bit in my city. Granted, my city is San Francisco, so it's not saying much, but I'm not rich, you guys. I'm really not. I don't get asked this as often as people of color do, but I will sometimes get asked what my ethnicity is or where I'm from, and I'm white. Boring old white. Mayonnaise as fuck. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, though I was born in Massachusetts. But I've lived in and around the Bay Area for most of my life. Here's some questions about my body. Oh boy, I love those questions. How old am I? Well, old enough to do what I do for a living, and also old enough that I don't tell people how old I am anymore. Definitely a comment I get on a lot of my photos is, what does that tattoo say? Let this be a warning to any of you young whippersnappers wanting to get into modeling. Don't get tattoos with words on them, because people will never stop asking you that. I have a tattoo on my hips that says, "We're in this together." It's framed by the male and female symbols, and it's a reference to the Nine Inch Nails song, "We're in this together." I have another tattoo on my left side that is a quote from Joss Whedon, cringe, that says, "The greatest expression of rebellion is joy." I will also advise you, young whippersnapper, if you are going to get text tattoos, don't get them on a very squishy place on your body because they will blur and look terrible within a few years. I have 9 tattoos and I have 8 piercings. I got most of my piercings by the time I was 20. When I turned 18, I was just like, yeah, fuck me up. Like, just throw all that shit in there. I wanted it for so long. So I have my tongue, my nose, my lip, both ears, cartilage, belly button, and one that I can't mention on this family-friendly YouTube channel. Sometimes people will ask me what my tattoos mean or what they're a reference to. For instance, I get asked if this one is a keyblade a fair amount. It's not, it's just a skeleton key. Most of my tattoos are inspired by classical illustration, which was my major in college. Pretty common question is what my favorite anime is, what my favorite TV show is, my favorite comic, and my favorite movie. So, in order, my favorite anime is Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Homura is my waifu. My favorite TV show is The Venture Brothers, by far. My favorite comic book series is the Sandman series by Neil Gaiman and Dave McKean. Adore them. My favorite movie is Hackers, which, if you haven't seen it, I'm ordering you to go watch it right meow. Got it? Okay, go, do. One of the good questions that I really like, because the answer changes so often, is which fictional character I relate to the most. And, you know, it's been pretty much the same for a while now. I'm gonna have to go with Daria. I've been compared to her for most of my life as a very dry, humored, kind of sarcastic person. Less so since I became an adult and I realized that caring about things is actually kind of awesome. But I still relate to her. I think she's really funny, and I like that she's kind of sexy in that, like, not really sure why way. Me too, man. Me too. I also relate to Ramona Flowers because I'm cute and nerdy, and young nerd boys like to project their wants in a girlfriend onto me. Nobody asked me this, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. I have 2 cats. One is named the Dude, after the Big Lebowski, and the other is Tia, after Tiamat, a Mesopotamian goddess of chaos. This is the Dude. He's great. He's about 10 years old, and he's my best buddy, as you can see. And now it's time for the thirst questions. Probably the most common thirst question I get is if I'm single, and my answer is no, but it doesn't matter. You don't know, I could be polyamorous. I'm not, but I could be. And even if I was single, I'm not about hooking up with random dudes from the internet anymore. Sometimes my followers or fans will assume that I'm not into men, which I can see how they'd get that idea. I am kinda gay, but not completely gay, just kinda gay. Sometimes somebody will ask, bless them, if I've ever slept with a fan or a follower, and the answer is, of course not. Nobody does that. I hate to tell you, but porn is not real life. It's just not. A happy thirst question is if people ask if I do nudes. The answer is yes, and then I can send them to link to where they can buy them. And sometimes they'll ask if I do porn. The answer is no, although I guess it really depends on who you ask. Seems like the definition kind of fluctuates. Often after I've posted a photo of me posing with another model, somebody will ask if we've actually slept together. Oh yeah, dude, you know, lesbian pillow fights all the time. It's a regular Playboy Mansion in my life. A lot of cosplayers will get asked if they have sex in their cosplays, which I'm sure sounds really hot if you think about it, but if you've never worn a cosplay before, because let me tell you, what we've got going on under all that, it is not sexy. Plus there's always the risk that your wig might fall off in the middle, which is just creepy. That's it, yay. Wait. Yes.